What conspiracy theory do you believe in? I've never used Tinder, just used OKC a few years back before I got into my relationship, and I definitely could see that being a thing, based on what some people say. OkCupid has amazing data available to read through in a public blog. If you're interested in statistics on dating, it's really interesting. I'm sure if you Google OkCupid data or stats, it would probably come up. That family meme was weak sauce, too. Of course there were eventually a couple good ones because give the internet anything and the clever people will eventually show up, but yeah, weak sauce, weak template, obvious corporate ploy. Good fucking riddance RIP 2021 to 2021. That family meme was weak sauce, too. Of course there were eventually a couple good ones because give the internet anything and the clever people will eventually show up, but yeah, weak sauce, weak template, obvious corporate ploy. Good fucking riddance RIP 2021 to 2021. I'm not trying to be insensitive at all, I'm just very ignorant to some situations. You posted this asking blind people, do visually impaired people have a way of having Reddit posts read aloud to them that isn't a YouTube compilation? As far as blind goes, I'm aware there's different degrees. Was this question for those who still have some type of sight? If not, were you aware that the visually impaired people may have access to others who would read this question to them and type their response? Again, I don't mean to be rude or insensitive in any way, I'm just confused and would love to be informed. Yeah, he likes to wind people up a lot of the time, like responding to the repeated question what do you think I looked like, by replying 6-foot Amazonian princess to everyone who asks. My favorite was the poor work experience kid who installed his phone at reception. Transferring a call without speaking to the recipient first is called a blind transfer, and this poor guy got so tongue-tied trying not to use that term in case it was offensive. Used to look after a blind fella. He enjoyed my company because of my voice. He knew it was me as soon as I walked in. My breathing perhaps. He said I have a very distinct voice, me and one other male carer. Everyone else sounded the same to him, haha. I like flaws. It gives me a sense of real, if that makes any sense. I don't like when people try too hard to cover up their imperfections. I think they just make them human and attractive. To give an example, my ex had a tooth that would stick out a tiny bit when she smiled, and it was the cutest thing. I'd imagine the meme culture as far as image formats aren't enjoyed much by them, but as far as browsing goes, there's probably a design tool for Reddit. Goes through and reads text posts, won't read out the username and dates unless you explicitly ask for it. Similarly to how sighted people wouldn't check that information unless something in the post comment section provokes it. It must be agonizing not being able to scroll past some bullshit you don't care about, as you wouldn't know you don't care about it until you finish hearing the TTS finishes going through it. Long text posts, clickbait titles, etc. But there's probably a workaround of some sort for that too. Technology has come a long way, and programmers have become a lot more experienced. I have a serious question, which will definitely sound like a joke but it isn't. How do blind people surf Reddit? I'm familiar with the narrator thing, but there's a tad bit too much on the interface to read out, right? And how do you understand memes? I'm incredibly sorry if I said something offensive, I'm genuinely curious. This might sound creepy, but their smell recently split up, and the smell is something I so vividly crave in my mind. I have this also with my family members. My grandma passed away 5 years ago, but I still know exactly her smell, and sometimes it makes me sad, but also feel good. Second comes how physically soft hugs and embraces feel. If you feel in a very softer and warm place and at the same time feel so very safe. Last I checked, legally blind is anything worse than 80-20. No, if so I'm legally blind too. Only far away stuff though. Nearsighted, anything beyond like 3-4 feet becomes more progressively blurry. Imagine like an ice bokeh effect, focusing on something 3-4 feet away, then slowly fading the further away it is. Color and stuff is perfect though. I am not blind, but I worked at my college creating accessible content for staff and faculty so that students, such as visually impaired, colorblind, deaf, etc., students could have accessible content. For the most part, screen readers are used and can detect images, links, text, and basically anything on a web page, PDF, and other things of that sort. I'm sure there are phone settings for accessibility as well. This is for those who keep asking how blind people can read this. I am legally blind. I'm not really good at recognizing faces, but definitely I love listening to people's voices and catching anything that is unique about them, like accents, stuttering, if it sounds nasally or raspy. Little things like that can help me identify a person so much quicker. I'm not %100 blind, but I use adaptive tools like speech-to-text and text-to-speech. You know, when there is an interview on TV and that person wants to stay anonymous, you know how they blur out their faces? That's how everybody looks like to me. Unless I get very uncomfortably close, I cannot identify your face, so definitely voices help so much. You also cannot go wrong with scent. I can also tell a person apart by the cologne or perfume they wear. Her voice, her heart, her touch, the way she talks to me, the way she is responding to me, and she is loving, compassionate, sweet, kind, respectful, and she wants to be my friend. I love how she includes me in activities with our friends, and she is not making light of my blindness. I never felt this kind of love before, ever. One of my older cousins are blind and he was badly abused in foster care. The parents would do shit like wave knives in his face, cut him, run at him and stomp their feet down to scare him, clap their hands in his face or ears, and other shit. What he found attractive about his wife is how non-threatening her feet sound on the floor and how calm and soft her voice is. This is the first AskReddit thread for ages where I thought it might have interesting replies and I'd learn things from a new perspective, but no. It's filled with how do blind people use Reddit. People with disabilities are still people, they still do things for themselves. Technology has come a long way in making lots of things more accessible, but can't solve ignorance apparently. One of two ways. Let the TTS interpret it however it can. Most of those are actual words, so it will do its best to pronounce them. Or go letter by letter to see what the person was actually trying to type. When you use TTS, you get used to minor typos happening frequently, and you can surmise what the person meant, kinda like when your brain fills in the gaps when you're reading visually, and skims over errors. When you type sturf, my TTS read it just like you might pronounce it, but I barely noticed it since I expected the word stuff in context. This is a really interesting question and I believe I can give a quick answer. However, it's not me that is blind, it's my wife, and she has been so since birth. My wife and I have been married for about 20 years now. We are in our mid-40s and she has never experienced a single ray of sun, nor the faces of our children. Although it may sound sad, she is doing just fine since she really can't comprehend what she is missing. The way she experiences something attractive or sexy is very different from how and I believe you well, do it, without making this into a boring novel. Let me sum it up real quick. She likes cock, and lots of it. I once asked a blind person what physical characteristics they felt were attractive. They told me that they preferred people with smoother skin rather than rough skin and said that people who felt colder than them were the best. He also said he preferred skinnier people more than others. He also noted that people who naturally smell nicer he liked more. I don't mind at all. I'm a woman, and I went blind relatively recently, so I pretty much remember what most of my closest friends, relatives look like. But I do appreciate when someone describes recent changes in appearance to me. I dyed my hair blonde. Check out my lime green nails. I splurged on some new foundation. Once or twice I've asked someone to describe their own appearance to me, because how they choose to do that can give you some insight to their personality as well. Mally Burke on YouTube has said that she sometimes asks close friends to describe appearances of possible Tinder matches, when she was still single. Personally, physical fitness and hygiene matter most to me. I like a man who's fit, and knows how to take care of himself. Grooming, cologne, generally well put together. I personally am not a huge fan of facial hair or piercings, but a few of them are fine. Hope that answers your question. Not blind, but I have a few blind friends I'm close to. Their general consensus is the feel of the person. If that makes sense, it's a case of physical touch such as the state of your skin, your build, and so on, but also stuff like your default tone of voice, and much like anyone they look at the personality. I didn't go. We were both on the train to Manchester, on seats with a table between us. She asked if I could see her to the taxi rank at the station. She took my arm and I walked her there, with some inconsequential small talk on the way. Then she said I could come home with her if I wanted because she didn't want to let go of my arm. She was quite attractive, and I was flattered, but I didn't think my wife would approve, so we parted there. What I took from it was that I'm extremely attractive if you don't actually see me, so there's that, I guess. I have sweet onion smell, that if I clean regularly, is not that bad. Don't normally need deodorant, though if I don't wash for more than a day it gets rather sharp, musky, and too much even for me. Just took a whiff and almost knocked me out. Thankfully I got to go somewhere tomorrow, so I can finally scrub up. I hate being poor to the point that running a shower or bath is a question of how much do I want to spend on my water bill. But I don't have a life, so I just made myself sad. This belongs in our. I've always been sensitive to people's smells. Yes, they do get masked by scent products, but for the most part it's always there underneath. Each of my family members smell different. My mom's is by far my favorite. I really enjoyed and was comforted by my partner's scents. I adore pretty much all variations of my husband's now. Shoot, even my friends smell different. Like my best friends, I can think of each of their scents. Didn't realize it was unusual. I dislike false scents, and am repelled by the perfume/cologne trail some people leave when they walk by. One of the most considerate things my partner did when we first started dating was to stop wearing cologne. Now I can smell hints of his face lotion, his underarm deodorant if I cuddle up under his arm, and the faint traces of places he has been sometimes on his shirt. And that smell in his hair after he cooks up dinner on the BBQ. Now that is nice. Then there is the delicate scent of his unadorned skin. Has he been outside in the sun a bit? Is the wind up? Skin smells different when it's had some sun. I don't know why. How about the soft skin on his neck? It's carrying traces of the mild clothes detergent he uses. He switched that too, just so I could smell him, and not false scents the companies seem to think we want. Perhaps the skin near his temple, delightful, and different than the skin of his neck. How about when we go camping? Now that is the whiskey of the scent spectrum. If a regular everyday is wine, when we are camping everything is ramped up. There are fewer competing false scents. Boo to cigarette smoke, that stuff is terrible. And the woodsy sweaty smell of humans hiking and camping is wonderful to me. All of that comes together for his human smell, like a book of many pages that describes who he is. And I love smelling the story of him. I didn't mean to go off on a rant, but I really like the human smell of my partners. So hopefully that answers your question. I swear I am not a dog who types, but I get their enthusiasm. I'm curious what you mean by human smell. I know we all give off pheromones and general body odor that we can't really smell ourselves, but I'm curious if each person has a distinct scent that gets masked by all the grooming products we use. My partner always tells me I smell good, and when I ask her what I smell like, she just says you smell like you, saucer boy. My preference in order of what I find attractive goes like this. I am not speaking for all blind people, this is my own experience, personality, voice and body type. Looks don't generally matter to me, and I prefer thicker people. All of these preferences don't have to alien right to make someone attractive to me though, like you can have a slightly less attractive voice and have a kick-ass personality. Basically when it comes down to what's most important to me is personality. I am not too big on smells, not saying that I am down for someone who smells not good, but a lot of people tend to layer smells, and I am one for the more human smell of people. Oftentimes, the personality is way more important and the first thing I get to know about a girl. Like, when I talk to a person, I can get a pretty good idea of how they are, and for most people, getting to the point where I'm allowed to feel parts of their body takes some trust, and by that point, we're usually pretty close. So, where most guys would see a girl's physical beauty first before getting to know the rest of them, it's likely opposite for lower vision people like me. Not saying that's good. My other head still tries to find things to fixate on like her voice or scent, but usually I feel like it's a pretty nice upside to the disability. With all that being said, purely physically, I tend to like people with soft, slightly squishy skin the most. Though other skin types have a charm of their own. If the hair is soft and feels well taken care of, that's great too, and that applies to most things. It's usually easy to tell if someone takes good care of themselves, both through touch and smell. Speaking of smell, some smells are really attractive. I tend to gravitate towards sweeter, fruity scents, especially of fruits I like mango, strawberry, or orange. I realize now that to most normal people, writing this out makes me sound like a cannibal. I assure you, I don't eat people, at least, not often. There's a good joke that applies. Two friends meet in a bar and one guy asks about the recent LASIK surgery the other had. Any complications? The other guy goes, no complaints. Got tired of glasses, although I have to get a new car, and I have to renovate my apartment, and I had to dump my girlfriend. No complaints though. Translated from another language, so forgive me if it doesn't land. For me it's about, for lack of better description, textures. How does he feel? Is he firm, fuzzy? Does he mind being touched in such an intense way? Personality is more important but stressed physical. Edit. I am not 100% blind. I can see outlines of people, bright colors and light. I still can't see the details of your face. I still need a reader. I still need voice to text. I also have a husband who assists me with photos and such. I have not always been blind. He was a good person, I just liked him. Went to see him in hospital one time. He'd left his phone at my work and he didn't have any family, so I went to hospital. He told me he was going to last time he was in and I sat with him. He looked so in pain and sick, but he was still making jokes. Kat told the nurse I was looking at her ass, nearly got me kicked out. As a barber I feel so bad for people who I can see going bald, but I give them a good laugh and pretend to be hurt because they are doing it deliberately so they won't need to come back. I said that to a cancer patient who was losing their hair and they burst out laughing and yelled, "Still better than your haircuts, cheeky bugger." I miss him. Even when he lost his hair he still made an effort to come down and I'd run the clippers over his head because he liked the feeling. Lovely guy, so sad he's gone. One of the best, brightest, funniest guys I know. I was watching The Bad Batch and all the clones have numbers. The TV said CT 5567 and I typed CC into Google, which automatically filled out the rest in the first suggestion. I've never looked that up before, and there's no way that's the first result for court. If nothing else, there's more popular clones in Star Wars. Most of the people use Google Meet including me. My mic is turned off, but I make any sounds that say "trying to speak please turn on your mic", which means it has access to your voice once you allowed that permission even if you turned off the mic. But I am not about what they do with our data. Basically they have all of our data, even what I type here using board.android is full of this.